Would you dare look at the person you've lived with for decades and say, I love a man? I didn't. She figured it out. And here's the story, exactly how it happened, step by step, so anyone can understand. I'm an older man. I have a routine, appointments, and medication on time. I've worked my whole life. I married young. I did what was expected of me. I paid bills, fixed things, and was a present husband. But over time, something unplanned came up. I met a man. First, it was a quick chat at the health center, then coffee, then short messages. Did you get here okay? Do you want me to go with you to your appointment? Do you need anything? I felt seen, respected, and I grew attached. It took me a while to accept it. It took me a while because I was afraid. Afraid of my family, my friends, my church, my neighborhood, afraid of losing everything I'd built. So I hid. The discovery happened on a normal night. A simple dinner was on the table. The television was low. My phone was next. To the plate. My wife picked it up to look up a recipe. She opened the conversation above. It was him. There were no indecent photos. There were no swear words. There was care. There was adult affection. There was an I miss you that was impossible to mistake. She read it all in silence. She put her phone back in the same place. I waited for a scream. It didn't come. Waiting for a broken plate. It didn't come. We ate dinner in silence. We washed the dishes. We went to sleep, each on our own side of the bed. The silence weighed more heavily than any argument. In the morning, I saw 2 suitcases in the hallway. I thought it was the end. I thought she was leaving. My heart sank. She looked at me and said calmly, I'm leaving. I need to understand you. And I need to understand who this man is. I tried to justify myself. She raised her hand and said, no speeches. I've already read it. I'm going to talk to him today. I want the truth. Then we'll decide our lives. She spoke without anger, without theatrics, only firmness. I sat in the living room. I took a deep breath. I remembered how it all began. I was worried about my health. He helped me with exams, medications, appointments, big talk, a short walk in the late afternoon. One rainy day, he lent me his coat. One dizzy day, he held my arm to the park bench. I started to feel cared for. That turned into affection. It turned into love, and I hid it from the person who shared my home for so many years, not out of malice, out of fear. But hiding it is also hurtful. I know. My wife unhurriedly packed her bags. She folded her clothes, checked her documents, put away the charger. She made coffee, swept the kitchen, and left everything in order. I asked if she wanted me to leave the house. She replied, not yet. Stay. I'll be back today. When I do, we'll talk, looking each other in the eye. I nodded. I owed her this. The whole truth. I thought about calling him and telling him to run away. I thought about asking him not to answer. I didn't. If I took that shortcut, I'd be lying again. I wrote on a piece of paper. I was wrong to hide it. I love you. I respect my wife. I'm going to tell the truth. I put the paper away. I decided to wait. Maybe you think this is a forbidden topic. Maybe you think it's just old people's fuss. It's not. This is real life. Many people live in silence, afraid of what others will say. Many people pretend everything is fine, so they don't have to face their own truth. I don't want to pretend anymore. But I also don't want to humiliate anyone. I want respect for everyone. That's why I'm telling you this, clearly and directly. Before leaving, she left a note on the fridge. Take care of yourself. I'll be back today. I read it and sat in the kitchen chair. I cried softly. It wasn't a scene. It was relief and fear combined. I opened the window. I let the air in. I tidied the living room. I wiped the table. I looked through our albums. I didn't tear up any photos. I didn't throw them away. Our story exists. She gave me a home, a family, a routine, care. I took care of her too. I just didn't take care of my truth. Now it was time to take care of it. Time passed slowly. I checked my watch many times. I made coffee again. I prayed my way. I didn't ask for a miracle. I asked for courage not to lie. I asked for respect during the conversation. I asked for calm within my heart. I picked up the phone, opened the conversation with him, and wrote, she's going to look for you. Be honest. Answer everything. I deleted it. I had to trust that the 2 adults would know how to speak without games. I closed the phone. I sat in the armchair and remembered details. The day he waited outside the doctor's office, the way he asked 3 times if I'd eaten, his patience when I took a wrong turn. This isn't an adventure. It's not a whim. It's care. And care, when we're older, is worth its weight in gold. I fell in love with this. I'm not better for it, nor worse. I'm someone who's tired of lying to himself. You may not agree with me, that's okay. I just ask that you listen to the end because what my wife did next wasn't an attack. It wasn't a scandal. It was an act no one expected. And it was that gesture that changed everything. Just before lunch, she grabbed her bags and left. She gave me a short, firm hug. She said, "I'm not your enemy." I replied, "Thank you for standing." I opened the gate. I watched the car turn the corner. I closed the gate. Slowly, I went in. I washed my mug. I sat down again. I waited. The hours passed. I didn't turn on the television. I wanted to hear the house. I grabbed a notebook and wrote 3 lines so I wouldn't forget them when she returned. 1. I hid them out of fear. 2. I love this man. 3. I mean no disrespect to you. They were 3 simple sentences. Harsh, but true. I would say them without hesitation. If you're an older man watching me now, you might know the weight of holding something big inside. If you're a woman listening, you might recognize my wife's strength. She chose to act calmly. She chose to seek the truth at its source. She didn't choose lies or noise, and that takes courage. In the middle of the afternoon, I got a text from her. "I'm home." Then silence. I didn't respond. I waited. In my head, I imagined the scene. She and he sitting across from each other. A corner table. A couple of windows. She asking, "Do you love my husband?" He answering bluntly. She asking, "Will you be with him on good days and bad?" He saying yes or no. I don't remember how it was, word for word, but I know she hadn't come to fight. She had come to understand. As the sun began to set, the house felt different. The air seemed lighter. It wasn't peace yet, it was space. Space for the truth to enter. I remembered the beginning of this story. The night of the silent dinner, the phone on the table, the clear message. Everything fit into a few lines. Everything fit into simple gestures. And that's how I'll continue. I'll stop here to keep the timeline straight and not spoil the next part. When she returned from that conversation, she made a decision that would change our home and our family. It wasn't a shout. It wasn't a slammed door. It was something direct, something that took everyone by surprise. If you want to continue, comment "continue" below. This helps me know you've stuck with me this far and want to hear the next part, which begins the moment the door opens. She walks in, puts her suitcase on the floor and says, "Now let's talk like adults without hiding anything." The door opened slowly. She came in, set her suitcase beside the sofa, and looked me in the eye. There was no anger on her face. There was weariness and firmness. She said, "Now let's talk like adults without hiding anything." I nodded. I sat across from her. The clock was making a louder than usual sound. I fell silent. She began. "I went to him. I spoke calmly. I asked what you two are experiencing. Is it friendship? Is it care? Is it love?" I squeezed her hands. She continued, "He didn't run. He didn't lie. He said he loves you. He said he respects our history. He said he doesn't want to take you away from your children and grandchildren. He wants you to be true." I took a deep breath. There was no shouting. There was truth. She pulled a piece of paper from her pocket. I asked clear questions. "Why are you with him? Since when? What do you expect from your life?" I listened to the answers. "Now I want to hear from you." I spoke simply. It started slowly. I was scared. He cared for me. I fell in love. I hid it because it seemed easier. But it's not. I'm tired of hiding it. She shook her head, understanding the weight. "Then let's get things in order," she said. "Tomorrow we'll both tell our children. Without shouting, without shame. We'll explain that life changes, that the truth isn't a weapon, it's a path. And we'll tell them the rules to follow. Respect in the Kai. Home, respect for our grandchildren. No gossip, no humiliation." I asked if she wanted to separate that day. "Not today," she replied. "Today, I want the house to sleep in peace, I think. You think, but we won't hide anything anymore." We were silent for a moment. Then we resumed. She wanted practical details, bills, documents, health insurance, visitation arrangements, schedules. If we decide to separate, it will be without arguments. If it continues for a while, it will be with rules. Loyalty, care, honesty. I agreed. I promised there would be no secret meetings. I promised that if she wanted, I would go with her to talk to her family. She explained her conversation with him. "I told him I won't be a rival. I'm part of your story. I demanded he treat you with respect, accompany you to appointments, help you in real life, not just on your phone." He agreed. I asked if he understands that you're an older man, that you get tired sometimes. He said yes. I asked if he wants to be by your side on your bad days. He said he does. I listened to it all in silence, trying to hold back tears. She opened her suitcase and took out an envelope. I bought 2 bus tickets for tomorrow morning. You, him, and I are going on a short trip. Just one day, the 3 of us will sit down and sort things out. I want to hear from you together. Then we can talk to the family. I froze. Are you sure? She said, I am. This isn't a trip. This is a serious conversation. This is the real beginning. That night, I barely slept. I made coffee, walked around the house, sat on the porch. I thought about each stage, the fear, the discovery, her going to him, the trip proposal. I thought about the church and people who only point. I also thought about older men who live in silence. I wanted to say, don't wait until the end of your life to be honest. But I held back. The priority was to deserve her courage. In the morning, she was ready before me. Simple pants, a light blouse, her hair tied back. I put on my best shirt. We caught the bus. The ride seemed longer. We sat side by side. At times, she held my arm. The gesture gave me strength. We arrived at the agreed-upon spot. He was already there. He stood up slowly. He looked at her and thanked her for coming. Then he looked at me. I'm here. We went to a simple private room. 3 chairs, a table, water. She led the way as a mediator. No attacks, no hiding. Each one speaks and the other listens. I spoke first. I said, I was scared and ashamed. I said I didn't want to lose my family or my dignity. I said I love this man, but I won't accept disrespect for the woman who's been with me for decades. She listened and took note. He spoke next. He said he doesn't want to divide me with lies. He said that if she wants to separate, he'll help her do it carefully. If she wants some time, he respects that. I just want him to live in peace, he said. The conversation continued for hours. We made clear things. No secret. Visits. No lies to the children, no scandals. If a separation were to happen, it would be planned with the house and expenses organized. If there was a transition period, it would be with a schedule and direct communication. I committed to informing them every step of the way. They agreed to maintain absolute respect, including in front of the church and family. As the sun set, we left the room. We walked to the bus station. I felt something heavy lift from my chest. It wasn't happiness. It was order. On the bus back, she leaned her head against the window and closed her eyes. I looked at her hands and understood what she'd done, put the truth on the table and stared at it without looking away. We arrived home at dusk. She said, we'll talk to the children tomorrow. You go first. I agreed. I opened the window and put water on to boil. As the sound of the fire filled the kitchen, I repeated the 3 phrases. I hid out of fear. I love this man. I respect you. The next morning, the living room would be full. Before that, I needed to breathe and be whole to face what was to come. If you've watched this far, tell me in the comments strength and truth. If you've experienced something similar, write I understand. This helps bring this conversation to more people and prepares the next part, the meeting with the children, each person's perspective, the difficult questions, and the decision that knocked on the door early in the morning. On the appointed morning, the room looked different. We opened the windows, cleared the knickknacks from the table, and set out water and coffee. She looked at me before the first bell rang. You go first. I nodded. When our children entered, each one carried a distinct silence, the oldest with a meeting look on his face, the middle one clutching her purse, the youngest turning his car keys. I asked them to sit down. I told them I would be direct and respectful, and I did. I hid something out of fear. It wasn't out of lack of love nor carelessness. I love a man. I should have spoken up sooner. Now I'll act truthfully. I'll respect your mother, our family, and my own mental health. The oldest crossed his arms. Dad, is this serious? I replied. It's real. The middle child cried silently. The youngest asked if it was his fault. It's no one's fault. My wife stood beside me. I've already talked to him. I won't yell. I want respect for everyone. The mood softened a bit. I explained how it all began without giving any intimate details. I spoke about the health center, the care, the appointments, the messages that gradually turned into affection. I said I wasn't having a youth crisis. I was in a real process. I reaffirmed that I wasn't going to abandon my grandchildren or disappear from life. The oldest wanted to know if the marriage was over. My wife sighed. We're not separating today. We're organizing our lives without lies. If we have to separate, it will be calmly and fairly, the middle wife asked, about the church. Let's face this together, without hiding from those who need to know, but without exposing ourselves to those who only want to hurt. I proposed simple rules. No cursing, no jokes, no exposing yourself. Anyone who wants to talk should make an appointment and come politely. No one is obligated to agree, but everyone is obligated to respect me. The youngest was still trembling. Dad, are you the same one? I said. I'm the same one who taught you to ride a bike. Only now I know. Longer hide who I love. He lowered his eyes and waved. I told him we'd traveled to talk, the three of us. I explained that we'd set boundaries, schedules, and responsibilities. There will be no secrets. If I leave, I'll say where I'm going. If I stay, I'll say how I feel. The oldest asked about money and the house. I showed him simple spreadsheets. Divided bills, clear expenses, no impulse purchases. My wife added, if we separate, we already have a draft agreement. There won't be any fights. Over the closet, the youngest asked if he would meet the man. I looked at my wife. She replied, in due time, with respect, yes, but first the family needs to adjust. We talked about the grandchildren. I agreed that I would continue to pick them up and take them to appointments and soccer practice. Nothing changes in the care. The middle child feared comments at school. If anyone disrespects us, we'll talk to the administration. Children don't shield adults. The oldest brought up the subject of religion. What about the pastor? I said. If he welcomes us, great. If he points the finger, we'll leave with dignity. Faith is not a platform for humiliation. The conversation heated up when the youngest said he'd rather not see me for a while. It stung, but I didn't respond right away. My wife took my hand. If a period of separation is necessary, let it be short and agreed upon. Father is alive, present, and only asks for respect. The oldest relaxed his shoulders and said he needed to digest. The middle child with red eyes asked for a water break. We observed 5 minutes of silence. The clock resumed its normal pace. When we got back, I opened up about my health, blood pressure, blood sugar, medications. I need support, not court. I said I'd continue my appointments and that he'd be with me when needed. My youngest son looked up. Does he treat you well? I replied, yes. That care is no secret. My wife confirmed. I saw him. He was respectful. That lowered my guard. We proposed a brief meeting with each child, separately, to listen without an audience. The oldest accepted for the following week. The middle child asked for coffee, just with me and her. The youngest said, later, and we respected that. Before closing, I reminded him that family isn't a choice, it's a bond. No one loses their surname because of someone else's truth. I also suggested a short statement to close relatives to avoid gossip. We wrote together, we are organizing the family. With respect, we count on everyone's discretion and will not tolerate gossip. By late afternoon, the house felt lighter, not happy, but breathable. Each of us left with a piece of reality in our pockets. My wife and I stood in the kitchen, watching the kettle whistle. Thank you for speaking clearly, she said. I thanked her for holding us accountable. Then we decided to take a further step, to seek out a family therapist with experience, working with long-term diverse couples. Professional. Help is not a shame, she said. I agreed. That night I sat on the porch and remembered other men like me, retirees, grandfathers, shop foremen, bricklayers, teachers. Many people push through life with a heavy heart. If this story resonates with you, perhaps it's time to exchange fear for conversation. I'm not romanticizing pain. I'm choosing truth over secrecy. This doesn't eliminate the burden, but it brings direction. I'll end this section with a public commitment. Tomorrow, I'll go to church and talk to the pastor. I'll explain that I still believe in respect and that I won't accept humiliation. If he welcomes it, we stay. If he attacks, we leave. Then, in the afternoon, I have a meeting with my oldest son. The plan is set. Adult conversation, firm rules, care for the one who has cared for me my entire life. And if provocation comes in the courtyard, the answer will be clear. No one silences the truth from an older man who has decided to live without masks. If you've come this far, with me, comment, respect first. If you've experienced something similar, write, I heard and understood. These words help me know you're with me and strengthen this channel of stories for older men, truth, family, and courage. In the next part, I'll share my conversation with the pastor, the church's reaction, and what happened when a brother tried to silence me in the courtyard. I left home early, shirt ironed, an old Bible tucked under my arm, more out of habit than certainty. On the way to church, I repeated to myself, speak clearly, don't attack, don't ask permission to exist. My wife walked beside me, her steps firm. We agreed. I would speak to the pastor first, behind open doors. If attacks came, we would leave together. If acceptance came, we would be at peace. The church was as usual, the smell of wood, the pews lined up, and children running around. Some greeted me without looking, others looked away. I didn't frown. I greeted everyone. When the pastor arrived, my wife asked, "For a minute, it's important." We went to the back room, the door ajar. I took a breath and spoke, looking into his eyes. "I came to tell the truth. I love a man. I continue to be a father, a grandfather, a worker. I don't want a platform. I want respect. If the house of prayer is a place of care, I'll stay. If it's a place of humiliation, I won't." The pastor remained silent. He asked if I wanted prayer for healing. I replied, "I want prayer for health and courage. I seek healing from a doctor. My truth is not illness." My wife added, "We came to talk, not to ask permission." He quoted verses like someone hiding behind a wall. I listened to it all without interrupting. When he finished, I said, "For years I helped here, carried pews, visited the sick, paid for food baskets. I haven't become a different man. I just stopped hiding a love." The pastor said the church wasn't ready. I said, "I am, and I won't tolerate insults or whispers in the hallway." He asked for time. I gave it to him. I respect time, no humiliation. We went out into the courtyard. Some brothers approached. A woman hugged me. "God knows your heart." A young man from the music group thanked me for my sincerity. The opposite also happened. A man who commands more than he helps stood in front of me, finger raised. "This is not the place for that kind of thing." I responded clearly and quietly. "A place of prayer is for people who are hurt and honest. I am both." He tried to talk over me. My wife stood beside me. A sister urged calm. The man insisted, "You confuse respect with permission to make mistakes." I retorted, "Confusing is thinking that gossip is a virtue." He took a step forward. I called the pastor. "You are the leader. Are you going to allow lynching?" Under pressure, the pastor asked him to step aside. He grumbled and left. The service began. I sat in the back. When it came time for announcements, the pastor spoke of love without hypocrisy. He didn't mention me by name, but everyone understood. I held my wife's hand. She squeezed back. Then more conversations. People who support quietly, people who hurt loudly. I repeated my 3 sentences. I hid out of fear. I love a man. I respect my family. And I added, "No joke today." A deacon suggested I disappear for a while. I replied, "I didn't come to parade. I came to pray. If the door is for everyone, it's not closed for convenience." Late in the morning, the pastor called us in. He said he needed to reflect with the leadership. I said that was fine, but that we wouldn't stay where there was disrespect. I proposed a path, small meetings, listening, no weaponized microphones. If they accepted, great. If not, we would leave calmly. He promised to call that evening. We walked home in silence. I thought about the older men who disappear from churches when the truth comes out. They don't disappear for lack of faith, but for too much finger-pointing. I won't disappear. If they expel me, I'll pray it. Home in the square, wherever I can. We had a simple lunch. I called my oldest son and set up the promised meeting. He accepted. He arrived with folders and questions. "Dad, how do you want to live from now on?" I said, "With routine and clarity. I'll continue to be a grandfather and a father. I'll take care of your mother in whatever way is necessary, and I'll love this man without hiding it." He asked if I was going to live with him. I said no right now. "First, let's organize our house. Respect each other's time." My wife nodded. My son wanted to know about the church. I told him everything. He remained quiet and, to my surprise, said, "If you're disrespectful there, come with me to another church on Sunday. I won't negotiate with my father's dignity." The hug was short and firm. That afternoon, the pastor called. The leadership decided they preferred to avoid scandal. In other words, they wanted me to remain invisible. I thanked him and replied, "I was invisible for decades. Not today." He tried to smooth things over with words like process and prudence. I concluded, "The time I asked for is to live, not to hide." I hung up peacefully. I looked at my wife. She said, "A door that doesn't welcome is not a door, it's a wall." I texted, "We faced the church. We left with our heads held high." He replied, "I'm here. I'll take you to the appointment tomorrow." I felt fear and relief at the same time. Fear of what was to come. Relief that I had stopped pretending. Went to the balcony, watched the sky change color, and decided the next step. Family therapy. Me, my wife, and if I'm willing, my oldest son. I want tools, not speeches. I want to learn to navigate conflict without destroying those I love. I want to learn to speak without shouting and to be heard without hiding. That too. That night we wrote a short statement to close relatives. We are respectfully reorganizing the family. We do not respond to gossip. Anyone who wants to talk, please come. Politely. I turned off my phone and listened to the house. A pleasant tiredness lingered. Before I went to sleep, my wife said to me, "We only lose what we don't defend. You defended your truth. I defended our history. Now let's defend peace." I kept that phrase. Tomorrow we have an appointment, then coffee with the therapist, and on Sunday, if the church doesn't want us, we'll pray in the square, sit on a bench, hold hands, and sing softly. Faith doesn't live in a building. It lives in the way we treat others. If you've listened to me this far, comment "no humiliation." If you've faced moralizing and finger-pointing, write "I don't hide." This will help the video reach other older men who are tired of pretending. In the next part, I'll share what the consultation was like, the first therapy session, and the conversation that changed the tone in our home when a relative showed up unannounced to give advice and heard what he needed to hear. I woke up early, took a leisurely shower, and spent a minute looking at my face in the mirror. An older man, marked by the passage of time but the same as always. He arrived to take me to my appointment. No flowers, no speech. He brought my test results, water, and a piece of bread with cheese. In the car, his voice low. "Did you sleep?" "Almost nothing. Today we'll take care of our bodies, then the rest." That calmed me. At the clinic, I sat next to him like I would any loved one. I didn't hide my hand, nor did I provoke him. When the nurse called, he asked if he could come in. "He'll take care of your medications," I said. The doctor nodded. She took her blood pressure, asked about my sleep, my pain. I told her about stress, the attacks at church, my conversations with my children. She was direct. "Stress ruins everything. We'll adjust your medication and introduce light activity, and you need a support network." I left with prescriptions, a follow-up appointment, and a simple list. Walking, water, medication schedule, proper rest. We took the bus to family therapy. My wife was waiting for us in the lobby. There was no scene, just 3 adults determined to live without trickery. The therapist's voice was low and her gaze firm. She asked me to recount the last few days. The conversation with the children, the service, my brother's finger in the courtyard, the pastor's call asking me to disappear. Then my wife said, "Exhaustion, yes, but also relief. I don't want war. I want respect and a plan." Finally, he said, "I want what's best for him and I respect their history. I don't want to become a source of contention." No one cried loudly. The room fell into a pleasant silence. The therapist created a living arrangement. Simple rules. Clear communication about schedules. No lies, no serious topics over text. Respect for grandchildren. Boundaries at the front door. No hallway gossip. If there's a separation, it'll be planned. If there's a transition, there'll be a date and a document. We signed like adults. In the end, she gave us a task. 1 gesture of respect a day. For me, to always let people know where I am. For my wife, not to cut me off in front of others. For him, not to talk about us without my prior agreement. It seems small, but it changes everything. We went out and had coffee. It wasn't romance, it was organization, and organization calms. We returned home in the middle of the afternoon. The gate was ajar. Inside, my brother-in-law was waiting for us, looking like a police officer. Not even a good morning. "I've come to save your family from this embezzlement." I asked him to sit down. He wouldn't. "No one raises their voice here," my wife said. He spat venomously about shame. I replied without shouting, "Shame is entering other people's homes without respect." He laughed, saying I was bewitched. I straightened up and said, "I'm lucid, and this conversation will only continue if there's respect." He tried to run me over, but realized that these days I won't back down. He tried to use the church as a weapon. I told him what happened in the courtyard and the pastor's call. I said I'd rather pray in the square than remain silent on a bench. He used harsh words. He didn't dismantle me. My wife stood by my side. "If you come help with the grandchildren, great. If you come bring gossip, you don't have to come back." At that moment, the doorbell rang. It was him, arriving with groceries, rice, fruit, and my blood pressure medication. He greeted my brother-in-law politely and went to put his things away. The inspector grumbled that I was showing off. I replied, "This is real life. Consultations, medication, respect. A show is gossip." He saw there was no stage. He left, slamming the gate. I sat down. I trembled inside, but I held together. My wife made coffee, he cut fruit, and the three of us made the most delicious meal of the day. We ate in pleasant silence. That night I called my middle daughter and told her about my brother-in-law. "If he shows up uninvited, call me," she said. We arranged Saturday in the stands and a simple lunch on Sunday, with whoever came without fuss. The oldest sent a message to the welcoming community. I thanked him. For now, I pray at home and in the square. Later, we'll meet. Before bed, I reviewed our respect agreement with my wife. We added, no big decisions in the heat of anger. If a relative arrives to perform, we cut the stage lights. She smiled a little, but she smiled. Her cell phone vibrated. It was the youngest. "Dad, I'm not ready, I need time." I replied, "Okay, time with respect." It hurt, but it hurt cleanly. The next day we went to the square. A cement bench, shade, children. We prayed quietly, each in our own way. No one has to like it. Everyone can understand that an older man needs peace too. Then we went to the market. People recognized us but didn't attack us. I think the news reached us before the gossip. I bought vegetables and exchanged jokes with the vendor. A brother looked at me, I greeted him. Life went on. At home we'll have a cold drink and schedule the next step. A discussion group with only the people who truly matter. My children, 2 nephews, the therapist, me, my wife, and him. Rules are laid out, agendas are in hand, and we'll be mindful of our health and our words. I'll present my limits, listen to theirs, and make a deal to keep the grandchildren from becoming coins. We'll have a clear message. No posting our lives in the group. No screenshots, no recording conversations without consent. It seems basic, but today it's necessary. I ended the day with my medications sorted, my diary stuck to the fridge, and the house in order. I said goodnight. He went home. I stayed in the living room, staring out the window. I felt something I'd felt for a while, grounded. Not victory, not defeat. Grounded. The courage to continue without a mask. From here, a new stage begins. Face-to-face conversation with my youngest. The first Sunday. Lunch after everything, and an unexpected invitation that arrived by text and could change our family dynamic. If you've made it this far, comment agreement and respect. If you think it's important to share this story with other older men who need courage, write fearless. Your comment and like help keep this channel alive and prepare for the next part, where I tell what it was like to face my youngest son without an audience and what happened when the neighbor showed up with his cell phone in his hand, thinking he was going to expose me, and heard what I should have said years ago. I also confirmed with the therapist. Wednesday, 7 p.m., small room, chairs in a circle. Anyone who raises their voice gets a 5-minute break. Anyone who misses the appointment can reschedule, but it doesn't delay the lives of others. It's simple. An older man, truth at the table, family sitting down, respect, yes. I met my youngest son at a simple bakery, a table by the window, grilled bread, and coffee. I arrived early. I needed to be in perfect shape. When he came in, he was tense. I didn't hug him out of surprise. I just opened my hand. He shook it slowly. "Dad, I don't know how to handle this." I breathed. "Neither did I know, son. That's why I made the mistake of hiding it. Let's talk calmly." We stayed silent for a minute, listening to the grill crackle. The waiter brought the coffee. He began, "I was angry because I thought you chose another life and threw ours away." I said, softly, "I didn't throw anything away. I'm still a father, a grandfather, a respectful husband. I just stopped lying." He stared at the cup. "I'm afraid of being mocked, afraid of my friends, my uncles." I held on tight. I was afraid too, but fear doesn't buy respect, the truth does. I explained that older men also change, feel, and need mental health and respect at home. I told him about the appointment, the therapy, our living arrangement. I said that if we separate, it will be orderly and that his mother won't be left hanging in the wind. He listened with tears in his eyes. "I don't want to lose my father at Sunday lunch." I said, "You're not going. I'm still here, just without a mask." He was blunt. "What if the family becomes a joke?" I was blunt too. No one becomes a joke by telling the truth. The joke becomes the one who records, distorts, and spreads it. Those who respect talk, those who don't respect, we cut. He tapped his finger on the table, more sad than angry. I wish I'd known sooner. Me too, son. I was afraid of the church, the street, our table, afraid of disappointing you. And fear doesn't create respect. Truth does. We agreed on simple steps, schedules, no group gossip, care for the grandchildren, no exposure. I promised to maintain my routines, pick them up from school, take them to the doctor, go to the game. He asked if I was considering living with him, the one I love. I said no right now. First, I'll organize my house with your mother. Then, we'll see if the next step fits our schedule. He nodded. He paid for the coffee and gave me a brief hug. I left with my heart heavy and firm at the same time. When I arrived at the gate, the neighbor had his cell phone raised, his finger on the button, and his expression aroused. I greeted him. "Good morning," he said. "The people have a right to know," I replied without raising my voice. "The right to know is through dialogue, not through stolen video." My wife appeared and stood beside me, explained clearly. "Recording without consent is bad, and spreading it is a crime. There are children and elderly people here. There is no stage here." He chuckled. I offered him a chair. "If you want to talk, sit down. If you want an audience, find another address." He put down his phone, apologized for his excitement, and left. On Sunday, we had our first lunch after everything. They arrived in pairs, each with their own face. I hugged those who wanted a hug and greeted those who preferred distance. We prayed standing up simply. I gave thanks for life, for health, and for the difficult conversations that prevent war. No one clapped, but no one turned their back. At the table, I kept the conversation on solid ground. Grandchildren's school, medicine, the fair, soccer. No one feigned amnesia. The doorbell rang. It was the same neighbor, now with a cake and a blunt apology. "I crossed the line," he said. I replied, "You did, so fix it. Don't record it, don't spread it, don't feed gossip." He nodded. I left the cake and the lesson, respect, then sugar. Mid-afternoon, a message arrived that I hadn't expected. The group of mature men from the local library invited me to a reading circle about identity, family, and aging. Over 50 only, no judgment, with coffee and a chair. I showed it to my wife. She said, "Go ahead." I replied to the group, "I'm in." It came quickly. "No one yells here, we listen." I wrote it down. Thursday, 7 p.m. That night, I reviewed the week with my wife, therapist on Wednesday, circle time on Thursday, grandson's game on Saturday. She said, "Our life isn't over. It's just no longer being invented." I stared at her hands, which have held mine through worse storms. I thanked her. I texted the oldest and the middle child, opening the house for a quick coffee with no hidden agenda. They confirmed the times. Before bed, I called my youngest son. "Son, thank you for today. You were honest." He replied, "I still feel angry, but I love you." I said, "I love you too. Let's move slowly and respectfully." I turned out the lights and listened to the house breathe. The weight of the lie became that of holding the truth. The day before therapy, I sat down with my notebook and wrote simple questions. What do I feel in my body when I hide it? What do I want to maintain as a husband and father? How do I talk to the church without turning into a fight? I wrote down 3 boundaries for everyone. No one calls me sick. No one uses verses to humiliate me. No one makes decisions for me without listening to me. The next day I woke to birdsong and a vigor I hadn't felt in a while. I went to the market early, bought parsley, tomatoes and bread. The vendor asked if everything was okay. "It's progressing," I replied. I stopped at the pharmacy and checked the dosages of my medicines. An older man who loves himself doesn't prove his strength by shouting. He proves his strength by drinking water, walking at his own pace, reading instructions and asking for help without shame. I returned home with the sun shining on my wall and a resolution to write 3 lines a day in a notebook, how I am, what I've learned, and a gesture of respect. In the afternoon, I prepared the living room for the Wednesday family gathering. Chairs in a circle, glasses of water, the agreement posted on the refrigerator. Clear communication, no yelling, no recording, no painful jokes. A 5-minute break in the backyard for anyone who needs it. Anyone who comes to argue stays out. Simple and possible. I took a deep breath. The house was once again a place for conversation, not judgment. If you've stuck with me this far, comment "Father without a mask." If you believe that good neighbors talk before judging, write "listen first." Your comment and like will help the video reach older men tired of living in hiding. Next, I'll tell you about the library gathering, what I heard from a 62-year-old truck driver with a similar story, and the surprise when a relative brought an invitation that could change our next Sunday. I arrived at the library a few minutes early. The room was bright, with 6 chairs, a thermos and a sign, "Men 50 plus, listening circle, no judgment." I sat near the door. They entered slowly. A retired banker, a math teacher, a construction worker with worn hands, and a 62-year-old truck driver with his hat down. The mediator asked each person to give their name and reason. When it was my turn, I spoke bluntly. "I'm a father, a grandfather, married for decades. I stopped hiding that I love a man. Now I'm reorganizing the family." Attentive silence. When I recounted the scene at the church, the finger in my face, and the so-called prudence to not return, the teacher said faith doesn't need an audience. The banker confessed that he wore the proper uniform for years until he fell ill. The construction worker summed it up. Anyone who builds a house knows, if the foundation is crooked, the roof collapses at the first gust of wind. The foundation is respect. I wrote it down in my notebook. I told them about the therapy, the agreement taped to the fridge, the conversation with my children, and the neighbor who tried to film me and was given a chair to talk to. They laughed lightly, getting the message. The mediator opened up to practical questions: how to talk to grandchildren, how to cut through gossip without turning into a fight, how to maintain a routine as an older man without disappearing. She proposed 3 tools: clear sentences, a 5-minute break, and a written agreement. We practiced right there. One played the intrusive relative, and the other responded, "Nobody yells here. If you want to talk, I'll listen. If you want to humiliate, the door is right there." It sounded like theater, but it was life practice. During the break, my phone vibrated. A message from my niece Paula. "Uncle, there's lunch at Grandma's on Sunday. I want you and Auntie. And if you can, bring him. The family needs to see that respect is simple." I read it twice. I showed it to the mediator, who smiled. "This invitation changes the atmosphere in the room." I put it away and felt a mix of joy and fear. I returned to the circle and told her. The bricklayer raised his finger. "Go ahead, but bring the rules. No jokes, no recordings, and no low-level questions." Everyone nodded. In the second part, we talked about health. Straightforward stuff. Tests, medication, walking, water, sleep. The truck driver said he only started taking his medication again when he stopped hiding, when the mind turns off the secret. The body breathes. I understood. I told him about the doctor who asked for a support network. Discreet applause. There was strength of a different nature there. Mature men holding their own lives in both hands. At the end, the mediator asked for a 3-line pocket card for times of need. I wrote, "I am not a mistake. I am a man who speaks the truth. Respect comes first." The truck driver showed me his. "I have been useful my whole life. I deserve rest and affection. I'll stay." We put the cards away and arranged to return. Someone brought homemade bread. We shared it equally. I returned home feeling light. I told my wife everything. She nodded. "Then let's face Sunday." We mapped out steps. Arrive early, let him know the boundaries, set a signal to ask for a break if the conversation got heavy. I called him. I explained the invitation, the rules, and my desire to perform without a show. He said, "I'm not afraid of people, I just don't want to hurt anyone." I replied, "We go in, eat, and talk. If there's any disrespect, we leave." The day before, we formed a circle at home with our children and 2 nephews. Chairs in a circle, water, and the agreement printed out. We started with the rules. No yelling, no recording, no jokes. I said, "I love a man. I'm still a father and grandfather. I don't accept humiliation." My wife, "No hallways. If we need to argue, it's here, sitting down." The youngest took a deep breath. "I still feel angry, but I want to learn." The middle child asked if he would go to Grandma's lunch. He said yes, with the rules. The oldest asked if he wouldn't turn it into a stage. I agreed. Diego, my nephew, asked to speak. "Character is showing up the same at the gate as in the living room." I wrote it down. In the end, we signed a simple document. Family doesn't record, doesn't humiliate, doesn't make decisions. Over their heads, silly to outsiders but written in black and white, it's calming. We scheduled a follow-up in 30 days. When the living room was empty, we held hands for a minute. She said, "Today, the house felt like home." Early the next day, I bought salad, juice, and garlic bread to take with me. I stopped at the pharmacy and picked up my medications. I texted Paula, "We'll be back at 11:30. Thank you." She replied with a heart and a, "It'll be okay." I straightened my shirt, sorted my documents, and put my card in my pocket. He arrived on time, his shirt plain, his gaze calm. "Shall we? Let's go." I locked the door, grabbed my bag, and we walked out firmly. At the gate, my neighbor was waiting for me with his cell phone in his pocket. I was the one who spoke first. "If you want to talk, come in. If you want to register, come back another day." He raised his hands. "Talk." I stepped aside. On the way, we agreed on simple codes. A hand in your pocket means pause, looking out. The window means time to breathe. A touch on the shoulder means a boundary is crossed. My heart was beating fast, not from embarrassment, but from anticipation. Sunday, family, a pot on the stove, grandchildren running around. For the first time, I was arriving in one piece without a mask. We stopped at the corner for one last adjustment. If anyone started asking dirty questions, I would end with the usual phrase, "Nobody shouts here. If you want to talk, I'll listen. If you want to humiliate, the door is over there." He smiled. I memorized it. We continued. I saw Grandma's house in the distance, the window open, the smell of garlic browning. I took a deep breath and squeezed his hand, not to provoke, but to say, "I'm here." My wife followed a little behind, keeping the rear guard of someone who knows every face at that table. I rang the doorbell. The sound of the latch sounded like a clock marking a new phase, and it was at that very moment that the gate opened and someone I hadn't expected appeared. A relative who had always avoided eye contact, carrying an envelope and a request that could change our Sunday and perhaps all the conversations that would follow. I took another breath and prepared to enter with all my strength, respect in my voice and agreement at my fingertips. If you've made it this far, comment "respect first" or "no joke, just dialogue" and subscribe. This way, the video will reach other men over 50. Next, I'll tell you what was in the envelope. Now, the gate opened and Cousin Celio emerged, envelope in hand, looking as if he'd come to sort things out. He didn't look me in the eye. He looked at my wife and then back at him. "I brought a request from the council," he said, holding out the envelope. I took a breath, thanked him and asked to go in first. Grandma approached slowly, grabbed my forearm and whispered, "Nobody humiliates anyone here." I felt the ground firm. We sat down. He, my wife, and I sat near the window. I handed the envelope to everyone to see. Inside were 2 pieces of paper. The first on the church's letterhead. "As a precaution, we request that you refrain from participating for an indefinite period. Should you wish to return, you must sign a term of silence and discreet conduct." The second was short with shaky handwriting. "My grandson lunches for satisfying hunger, not dignity. Anyone who raises their voice, get up and go to the gate." Grandma. My cousin wanted to speak. "It's better to sign, to avoid gossip." I rested my hands on the table and spoke softly. "Signing silence to exist isn't prudence, it's erasing people. If the church wants to talk, I will, but with 2 witnesses, without humiliation and without staging." Grandma tapped the wooden spoon lightly on the tabletop. "This is lunch, not court." I served the salad. The dishes arrived, grandchildren running. Aunt Ruth pointed with her chin. "And what's he?" I used the phrase I'd practiced in the men's circle. "He's the one who respects me, takes care of my health, and walks with me. If you want to talk, I'll explain. If it's to humiliate me, the door is over there." The aunt didn't insist. Grandma looked at him. "Son, will you cut the ham for us?" He got up, washed his hands, and calmly cut, a fair portion for each plate. The youngest arrived late, with a lemon pie and tears in his eyes. He didn't hug me like a movie. He leaned his shoulder against mine and said softly, "Let's test our respect." I nodded. The neighbor stood quietly in a corner. When the glass of juice fell and wet the towel, he picked it up and wiped it away without a fuss. Amidst the rice and beans, the cousin resumed his role. "The church can't tolerate scandal." My wife, who had remained silent all morning, spoke in a clear voice. "Scandal is lying. Today we plan routes, not masks." Aunt Ruth began a prayer of deliverance. Grandma interrupted sweetly but firmly. "We pray after coffee. Now we chew." I excused myself and read Grandma's note aloud. Then I read the council's letter, without changing a single comma. I said my answer right then and there. "I won't trade faith for an audience. If there's a respectful conversation, I'll go. no silence. The oldest stroked his beard. The middle one held her sister's hand. The youngest stared at his plate. Grandma, from the head of the table, concluded, "Then it's agreed. Respect or the gate." After lunch, coffee brewed. His niece Paula brought a box of photos. Laughing, she pulled out a blank card. "Cousin, write 3 rules for the family. We'll post them in the group." I wrote 1, no recording, 2, no jokes about pain, 3, no making decisions on the spot. I took a photo and sent it with the caption, "Agreed for today and the day after." The youngest responded with an okay. That's when the cousin's phone rang on speakerphone. It was the pastor. "How's it going?" Grandma interrupted. "Pastor, this is a family home. Can you call back later?" The man stammered and apologized. I asked for his number and said I'd call back in the afternoon with 2 witnesses and at a neutral location. "The neighborhood library will do." He hesitated, then agreed. The room gasped. At dessert, the second surprise arrived. My 8-year-old granddaughter stood in front of me with a drawing, me, her grandmother, and him, holding hands, and a sign, "Respect." She said, "Grandpa, that way no one fights." The paper broke me in a good way. Aunt Ruth tried to comment, but her husband grabbed her arm. "Leave it." We took a family photo. Then Grandma asked for another, now with the person who takes care of him. It was me, Grandma, my wife, and him. Grandma concluded, "That's it. That's all. Care." As we went to put away the dishes, my cousin approached with the envelope. "Think about it carefully. It will be easier for everyone." I responded with the voice I'd found in this process. "It's easy to stay silent and get sick. I chose the right difficult thing." He didn't argue. He placed the envelope back in my hand, but this time with something extra. A small folded letter. "From Sister Lydia." I opened it in the backyard. It was simple. "If you want to pray, I'll bring tea and stand on the sidewalk. No audience." I smiled. That's how it begins. Late in the afternoon, we spread out across the yard. I sat with my father-in-law, who barely speaks anymore. He pointed to my chest and said one word. "Steady." I replied, "Steady." Grandma brought 3 small containers of leftovers. My wife thanked him. He took the bag and asked if he could come back the following Sunday. Grandma laughed. "If you bring respect and cheese bread, always." Before we left, I picked up my cell phone and called the pastor. As promised, I spoke on the sidewalk in full view of everyone. "Good afternoon. I confirm the meeting at the library Wednesday, 6 p.m. I'll be with my wife and the brother who's accompanying me. No audience, no recording, no silence." On the other end, silence and none. Okay. I hung up with the peace of someone who sets limits without shouting. We returned home empty-handed and full of heart. At the gate, the neighbor took a deep breath. "Can I say something?" I said, "Say it." He, "Today I learned that respect takes up less space than gossip." I laughed. "And it feeds more." We went inside. On the table, I left the envelope and the note from Grandma. I took out my notebook and wrote the 3 lines of the day. How I am, whole. What I learned, waking. Pretexts, gesture of respect, listening and not giving in to the show. Tomorrow I'll start preparing the library talk. I'll take my notebook. If you've made it this far, comment, "Respect at the table," or "I don't sign silence." Like and share this video so it reaches other older men who need this courage. In the next part, I'll share what it was like to face the pastor eye to eye, without an audience, and the third surprise that appeared mid-conversation. He stopped a step away from the microphone, held up a manila envelope, and spoke clearly. "Before the motion, there is a request." He opened it, removed stapled sheets, and took a deep breath. "I am Deacon Nivaldo. I was the one who shouted that Sunday. Today I ask for forgiveness." The hall roared with wind. The man who made the motion tried to speak, but the pastor raised his hand. Nivaldo continued, "Here are 73 signatures. Widows, grandmothers, young people, people from the choir and the reception desk. We ask for 2 things, public respect and a written commitment that no one will be humiliated again." Those whose arms were crossed slowly uncrossed them. My grandmother squeezed my forearm and whispered, "Sign with your eyes." The pastor read the proposal and said shortly, "Let's vote now, no speeches." Half the church raised their hands immediately. Others hesitated. The usher opened the door to let in some air. My wife stared intently at the pulpit. The brother in the motion became irritated. "And discipline?" The pastor replied, "Discipline is for those who destroy. Those who present themselves, ask for forgiveness, and sign a commitment are building." The phrase wasn't pretty. It was useful. Hands went up, one, two, many. Grandma, with a crooked finger, raised her arm too. The count was simple. The rule passed. The organ played unhurriedly. The choir sang an old hymn. The pastor stepped down from the pulpit and came to the aisle. He didn't hold out the microphone. He held out his hand. I stood. I shook it. He looked at my wife, my grandmother, my children, and repeated the gesture. Then he turned to him and said, "You're as welcome as anyone else." Some left. Others came to hug me. I didn't cry. I remained standing. Older men stay too, even when their legs tremble. The granddaughter reached into my pocket and handed me the drawing with the word respect. I lowered it and said, "Keep it. You're the one who keeps it." She tucked it into her dress and smiled. On the way out, the sidewalk became the kitchen. Coffee, simple cake, cheese bread, Grandma had promised. A neighbor apologized and put away his cell phone. Sister Lydia brought tea and asked about my blood pressure. I said I was under control and that my head, for the first time in a long time, was too. Nivaldo came up to me without an audience and repeated, "I made a mistake." I said, "Now learn from us." He nodded. My youngest sat on the garden bench and rubbed his hands. I said, "Ask." He took a breath and said directly, "Do you love me?" I replied without a sermon, "I do, and I'm still your father." He bit his lip. "I don't want to lose you." I hugged him. No one loses when they show respect. We just change places in the picture. My wife added from the gate, "Here at home, truth is not a threat." We returned home late at night. On the table, I placed the paper with the signatures and my granddaughter's drawing. I opened my notebook and wrote, "Today I existed without apologizing." He washed the cups. My wife said, "Tomorrow I'll schedule your exams." An older man's life is like this. Appointments, medication, walks, and now one more task. Making room for the truth without pushing anyone out. On Monday, the phone rang. It was Mr. Alvaro, from the choir. "Mr. Jose, if you come to rehearsal, we'll print the letters large." I went. I sat in the back and sang softly. The lyrics said, "Kindness and faithfulness have met." I don't understand complicated theology. I understand an outstretched hand. During the break, Sister Lydia told me about her brother who had been silent for 30 years, and when he spoke, the pain lessened. It didn't become an announcement, it became routine. That's what I wanted. A good routine, a tidy house inside. I received a message from the pastor. "Thank you for keeping our agreement." I replied, "Thank you for keeping the door open." I arranged a small Sunday lunch with Grandma. She said, "Bring bread and respect." In the family group, I wrote 3 lines. No recording, no painful jokes, no rash decisions. No one argued. My youngest son said, "Okay." My niece, Paula, sent a heart. Before bed, I sat with him on the porch. The street was almost empty. The streetlight hummed softly, and the neighborhood dogs barked in the distance. He asked if I was afraid of what they'd say tomorrow. I told him the truth. I am, but I prefer fear on the right side to peace on the wrong side. He took my hand slowly. My wife opened the window and laughed. "You, too. Bring the plants inside, it's going to get cold." We walked in laughing. A simple thing, but it calmed us down. On Saturday, I set the table with an agate plate, still warm bread, and coffee brewed through a cloth strainer. Grandma arrived early with a jar of jam and some advice. "You don't win a shout with a shout. You win with rules and with repetition." I nodded. Repetition of respect, of listening, of limits. While the bread was browning, I wrote on a piece of paper and stuck it on the fridge. No humiliation, no hidden recordings, no forced silence. It's not a pretty poster, it's a housekeeping manual. Later, I sat in the backyard and responded to messages from men like me, white hair, work-marked hands, saying they'd heard this story and felt better. Some promised to share the video with their church group, others just asked for prayer. I said, "I'm not a pastor, but I can walk the walk." And for me, walking the walk means looking someone in the eye, shaking their hand, and agreeing on simple rules that are affordable. Now, if you've stuck around this far, I ask you for 2 things that will greatly help this channel reach other men 50+ who live between faith and fear, between family and truth. Comment, "I stay," or "respect without silence." Also, write which part resonated with you most: the vote, the apology, the outstretched hand, the granddaughter's drawing, and like, subscribe, and activate the bell. Next Sunday, I'll return to the same bench, the same way with the same calm. If someone breaks the agreement, we'll go back to the library table and adjust. Because respect is rechecked, like checking blood pressure and adjusting the pace on a walk. What we recheck remains. What we fake collapses. Today, it didn't collapse. Today, the door opened, and we walked in without shouting, without humiliation, and without fear. One step at a time, with our heads held high. And, if you're with me, comment, "I'm staying below," and tell me if you want to. Continue next week.